So apologies for the technical hiccups. As always, with remote meeting, there is certain risk to carry. So yeah, thank you for everyone staying and being patient. I'm very happy to talk about some of the underappreciated opportunities in the battery aftermarket beyond recycling. Of course, I will touch on certain aspect of recycling as well, but I want to raise awareness with this talk on the opportunities with repair, refurbish, and repurpose of batteries. Uh, First off, a couple of words about Porsche Consulting. Just to clarify some confusion here, we are not Porsche, the automaker, but we are a 100% subsidiary of the Porsche Group, but with a deep root within the entire Volkswagen brand. We're working as Porsche Consulting very closely with our car maker brands. You see here the 12 car maker brands, but as well with battery producers, the PowerCo and Cellforce Group, as well as some of our direct investments. We as a team at Porsche Consulting conducted over the history now, I think more than 150, but meanwhile probably around more than 200 projects with one globally dedicated team. We are active along the entire battery value chain, of course, with a strong heritage with the OEMs, be it the passenger vehicles, the truck makers, but also more and more beyond automobile, so to say. But we are also, moving upwards the value chain towards cell makers, material suppliers, and also recyclers and battery aftermarket companies. To kick off the talk, for sure, we are looking at the rise of the electric vehicles and associated battery demand. In our own forecast, we're looking at roughly 40 million of new energy vehicle production that includes a battery electric vehicle, but also different variants of plug-in and hybrid vehicles through 2030, 70 million, and this number goes beyond 80 million in the overall market by 2035. Now, this is for sure a big opportunity, but what I want to talk about today is what's going to happen with them when they are coming back from the field. Now, this is something maybe people are not so much aware of. We are first of all dealing with a huge volume of what's gonna coming back by 2035, coming from this electric deployment. In our own estimation, we're talking about 50 million tons of battery equivalent. Just to give a feeling what that means, if you were putting all this battery scrap, so to say, into containers, standardized train containers, this will be spanning a length of half the circumference of the planet. So 2 million containers, a number everybody should be aware of, and we need to come up with good solutions to deal with those end-of-life batteries and scrap. When it comes to end-of-life batteries, for sure everybody thinks, well, what's the big deal? Let's go for recycling, get out of the valuable materials, and close the loop. Well, the truth is it's not that simple. If you look at how nowadays batteries perform versus a typical lifetime of an electric vehicle, you will quickly realize recycling, be it a rather good approach to close the loop, actually destroys significant service life, which means the functional value of the battery. This is particularly the case for, let's say, low-cost chemistry such as the lithium iron phosphate battery, with a very long cycle life. Typically, if you will use this in vehicles, this will be equivalent to roughly 30 years of service life. Typical vehicle time ends roughly around 15. But also even the high performance batteries and the nickel manganese cobalt batteries, they will still have some of their service life left after a typical vehicle life. Well, this begs then the question, what can we do more than recycling, right? Our call for action here is really look at this aftermarket as a holistic one and consider all the business opportunities more than recycling. So recycling is not the only solution. What is there more to talk about? We are talking about the 4 R's in the battery aftermarket. It's about repair, it's about refurbishment, it's about repurpose of the battery, and of course, at the end of the day, we need to recycle. What is repair? This is everybody it encounters on everyday life. We fix the same product for the same application, so we can continue use the same product. Refurb means we were taking out the battery from the actual application, from the vehicle. We create a new product, but still remains in the same application. So I take a battery out from one vehicle, make it fully functional again, and put it back into, say, the same vehicle type. Repurpose, simply speaking, we come from the vehicle, take out the battery, and move it to other applications, such as stationary application, but also two-wheelers and other less demanding applications. And recycling, this goes without saying, we take out the valuable metals and then bring it back into the initial application. Now, what I want to talk about in this talk are basically three questions. One, as I mentioned at the beginning, I want to talk about the business opportunities, give you a feeling about which value pools are actually behind all these revival methods. Then addressing towards the newcomers, what are the key challenges to enter the different segment of the battery aftermarket? And last but not least, some of our market observation and dynamics happening right now and the derived implications from there on. To talk about the entire battery aftermarket, by 2035, we are looking at an entire market of 30 billion euros of untapped potential for newcomers. The biggest value pool for sure will be recycling, but I want to raise awareness, really, even the refurb and repurpose market, we are talking about billion-dollar businesses here. And the good news for new entrants is you have a let's say, moderate process complexity and a rather low entry barrier, which makes those markets, despite smaller size and recycling, rather interesting. Recycling, even though these are the big tickets, but we are talking about very sophisticated processes with especially the metallurgy. You need a very long experience in the chemical industry to actually master the process complexity. Now, what does it take to take on these business opportunities? We identified as Porsche Consulting 6 key challenges to enter. Some of them we heard already in the previous panel. Battery access, for sure. This is what everybody first talk about today. If you look at the market, due to the depressed raw material prices, recyclers may be able to charge even a gate fee from the producer of the battery and from the OEMs, which just want to get rid of the batteries. But in the long term, we believe there will be a strong competition for the ownership of used batteries, as these components are intrinsically valuable. And the access will be highly dependent on where the batteries are actually coming from which incidences, and I will talk about this in a minute. The next thing is diagnostic and sorting. Despite, let's say, a rather small value creation in the value chain, this is a very critical step, because here the critical technology and the economic decisions are made for the aftermarket. Basically, at this step, we will make a decision if a battery is fit for refurbishment, for repurpose, or it has to go to recycling. So having here a clear decision-making process and the competences to evaluate battery state of health will be critical. Technology variety, this is something the OEMs is good at mastering, but when those batteries, be it NMC, LFP, solid state, silicon, and so on and so forth, when they come back from the field, this will pose a big challenge for recyclers, because this will mean a very inhomogeneous feedstock and also inhomogeneous state of health distribution across the field. Regulatory compliance, something we heard about at the panel, I think in a very prominent way. Each of the region has set up different regulatory boundaries for the aftermarket. It's not, let's say, a only technical and business-driven decision-making. Regulations in Europe regarding recycled demand, but also the battery passport will influence decision-making towards refurbishment and repurpose. Vehicle homologation restrictions in Europe is the second let's say, big driver for decision making. In North America, you have let's say localization requirements, and also in China the industry standards given certain directives towards the market. Competence ramp up and growing competition. These are, let's say, overall strategic challenges every business owner, every business is facing, and this is no different for the battery aftermarket. We are seeing OEMs moving towards the aftermarket by gaining know-how, gaining assets in different battery revival methods. The first refurb hubs are being built up as we speak, and growing competition. Of course, not only the OEMs will work in this field, but also other value chain player will having their attention on. Now having the deep dive on battery access, we classify the feedstock by the way they are coming from the field into 5 categories. We have first and foremost the production scrap, then the vehicles which are coming back from accident and technical failure, then the classical end-of-life vehicles, so the cars which are basically too old to be continued driven, but the battery may still be intact. Then the actual battery end-of-life incidences, and the last but not least, to some extent, we have also batteries coming from the field from pre-series vehicles. And depending on where the battery incident is coming from, not everyone along the value chain will have, so to say, equal access to those batteries. The OEMs are probably the best positioned ones because we have through our dealership networks the access to batteries from the different incident type. The only thing which we are not so having our hands on is production scrap, because they are basically at the pack producer and the cell producer side. Next up probably are the repair shops. They have direct customer contact and have the direct access to the fleet. Cell and pack supplier, I just mentioned, biggest opportunity in production scrap, but also the pre-series validation battery packs or battery cells. Some of them will end up back in their suppliers. Those who are not having direct contact with the battery are the ones who is delivering components into the vehicle. So the classical tier 1 suppliers, and also the recyclers, they won't have direct access to the battery. They will have partnerships, of course, but by the nature of the business, they are not having their hands on the batteries. So therefore, even more important for those to create strong partnerships along the value chain to safeguard the feedstock for scaling. The second topic I raised at the beginning of the key challenge is the diagnostic and sorting. And here, just to emphasize why this is so important. It is important for techno-economic decision making. If you look at the decision process along the battery aftermarket, we do look at technical feasibility, but most importantly also the economic feasibility, right? So the technical feasibility, this is pretty easy to explain. You do have system design boundaries, which does not allow for disassembly of the battery pack. So cell to pack architectures is very hard, let's say, to do repurpose if you do want to move away from the entire system. Mechanical condition bonding methods, this is quite easily understood. If you have, let's say, damaged batteries, you probably can only go for recycling and do not tap into refurbish and repurpose. If the battery cells are actually glued into the battery pack, as we see today, most of the cases, repair on the cell level or refurbishment of singular cells, this will be very challenging to do. Even given the technical feasibility, and here this is the most important part, you will look at the value. You will have to need the transparency on the value of the battery to make proper decision making. And this is mainly dependent on the state of health of the battery, and this is an intrinsically challenging task to do right now, to determine properly the state of health if the battery is coming back from the field. It is a time-consuming and low accuracy process, as we know today. It is highly specific on the chemistry, the manufacturer, the cell design, and the pack design. And as of today, we do not have a standardized approach. However, we believe there is a silver lining to this. At least in Europe, we have big hope on the battery passport, which will make those critical data transparent and enable quick state of health check and increase the data accuracy as data accumulates. So with the introduction of such tools, we will have more opportunity to evaluate residual value of the battery properly and make those decisions in a more educated way. In the overview, if we look at the market, and now I'm going towards the third question, what are the market dynamics? We do see this clustering of business opportunities. So you can say the repair, refurbish, and repurpose, they are in the cluster of the reuse cases. The competition will happen between OEMs, repair shops, cell pack suppliers, and component suppliers. They will all trying to pursue their own interests in those markets, and the recycler will be a little bit in a good position in the sense of competition. They have their specialized chemical know-how and will basically tap into the recycling market with a very high entry barrier. Looks very nice, but if we look really at the recycling players, I think the key to win in the recycling market is really to scale. Now, this is not only the industrialization challenge, but this is really the challenge of getting the necessary feedstock and maintain the critical scale. When we talk about critical scale, we believe a world-class battery recycling facility will need somewhere between 100 and 150 kilotons of batteries. And if you just look at the European projects, only a few of them are actually planning to reach those scale. Most of them will move somewhere between, let's say, 10 and 50 kiloton scale, and a certain amount of players are actually having some smaller plans. And this leads to our perspective towards 2030. There will be a strong consolidation of the market, and not, so to say, all the projects will become standalone projects, but will most likely has to merge and to reach the critical scale. To summarize the recycling market, I mentioned the scale. We need to reach scale, and here a clear definition of the feedstock securing strategy is needed. Recycling is a high investment business. When we talk about this, let's say 100 to 150 scale, we talk about 500 million upfront invest. This is not an easy task. Here, having a clear advocacy towards the policymaker and towards the investors to elaborate the economy of scale is critical. Building up competences is the next key to win. Here, we don't have to do everything by ourselves. Defining the right partnering strategy to secure technology leadership is the way to go. And last but not least, of course, is to navigate through the regulatory landscape, having there a early transparency on what are my boundary conditions will be the key for business decisions. To summarize my talk, with regard to business opportunity to take away, we are talking about a 30 billion market in 2035 of the overall battery aftermarket. Refurb and repurpose are some of the untapped potentials for newcomers. Keep in mind the 6 strategic and technical challenges I just mentioned, with special focus on battery access and state of health estimation for your business success. And last but not least, reuse cases are probably the ones with the lower entry barriers, but then consequently with high competition. And when you look at recycling, competition is lower, but the entry barrier is higher. Having there your competences mapped out properly is the key to win. With that, I hope I'm right on time, despite the technical hiccups, and happy to take a couple of questions.